Hey, this is John Lee Dumas, the founder and host of Entrepreneurs on Fire. And if you're wanting to learn how to embrace change and navigate through disruption as a leader, then listen to the Leadership is Changing podcast with my good friend, Denis Gianoutsos. He's prepared to ignite.
Welcome to Leadership is Changing. Each week, we and our guests provide information and insights through exploring leading change. This is taking your leadership to another level by finding the balance between executive excellence and personal well-being through stories that inspire real change. It's time to adapt in our fast-moving world when leadership is changing with your host, Denis Gianoutsos.
Hey there, listeners. Well, welcome to 2025. I want to say thank you for tuning in to the Leadership is Changing podcast. But as we step into a brand new year, I want to take a moment to reflect on the incredible journey we've had in 2024. Over the past year, I've been privileged to feature some amazing guests on this podcast, leaders, change makers, and innovators who shared their wisdom, experiences, and insights. And together we've explored what it means to lead in today's ever-changing world. Over the next month, we're going to bring you some of these highlights. And in the Highlights 2024 episodes, we're bringing you some of the most impactful moments and key takeaways from 2024. Now, these highlights capture the essence of what this podcast is all about, helping leaders like you thrive in times of change and complexity. Now, whether it's tips on being courageous, thinking outside the box, adapting, or navigating transitions to higher levels of leadership, these snippets are sure to inspire and energize you for the year ahead. And of course, these highlights are just the tip of the iceberg. If something resonates with you, I encourage you to go and check out the full interviews from 2024 to dive deeper into the incredible conversations we've had. So let's get into it. Here are the highlights from 2024 on the Leadership is Changing podcast.
Yeah, I live in and work in Charlotte, North Carolina here in the United States.
Excellent. Have you always lived in the States?
Yep, I've lived all over the States. So, of course, as you know, we've got a pretty large country here, and I've lived in literally all four corners of the Northwest and Spokane, Washington, Boston, Los Angeles, and even Florida. But now I kind of settled in the Mid-South, as we call it, here in Charlotte, North Carolina, which is on the East Coast.
Should I ask you which is your favorite, or was that a loaded question?
You know, you can, and I'll tell you, it's Charlotte. Again, I grew up in the Northwest, Seattle area, kind of in that general area, and loved Los Angeles. I love California. Unfortunately, 40 million people feel the same way, so it's just too many rats in one maze for me. But I lived in Texas and I lived out in Georgia, but Charlotte is it's a great city because it's big enough to have, the major sporting teams and get all the concerts, and, it has culture. But it's not so crazy you can't get around, and it was a wonderful place to raise a family. So I've been here for the last 17, I'm 53 now, I've been here for the last 17 years, and I don't have any plans to move anytime soon. So this is, after 8 moves corporately, this is my home now.
Okay, cool. I was going to ask you the question, where's next? But you've answered it, so it's good.
Right here. I'm done. I'm done. I did my 8 moves, with different promotions and opportunities. So
hobbies, sports, interests, you sort of follow?
Yeah, fun question. So, so many people and so many of my peers grew up and were huge sports fans and played all the sports. And I played all the sports, most of them, but I was never great at them, if I'm really honest, which is kind of ironic that I own a fitness franchise, a boxing for fitness franchise as a living. But growing up, instead of having like Michael Jordan on my wall, I had pictures of Eddie Van Halen and, other guitar players. And I was a rock guitarist growing up from the time I was, 12, 14, all the way through high school and college. And so my heroes were rock stars, and I still love sports and watch, football religiously and basketball. But that was never what I aspired to be. I always loved the lights, the stage. I love music. It's part of my soul. And that even today is, I'd rather watch a concert on YouTube than the latest sporting event, unless it's, the Super Bowl or a finals or something.
Right. Yeah. Which normally has a concert in the middle of it anyhow, right? So
exactly. This is true. This is true. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm going to get to, because I'm going to sort of ask that question around the rock side of things, but you've had a 30-year career in sales, marketing, C-level leadership, and you're the co-founder and CEO of 2 national franchise brands, RockBox Fitness and Beam Light Sauna. Tell us a little bit more about that. And is that where the name RockBox comes from, is around the rock sort of side?
Great question. Yeah. So, in a very abbreviated sense, I went to university, and after I finished university, I got a job with a company called Eli Lilly, which is a big global pharmaceutical company. And I spent the next 25 years in 4 or 5 different companies in the pharmaceutical business for 25 years. And that's why I moved my family 8 times during the years all over the country, as I would get a promotion or there'd be another job opportunity with a new firm. And at the ripe age of, I guess it was 46, 47, I decided, and at that point I was a chief operating officer. So I started as a sales rep. I finished my corporate career as a chief operating officer at a pharmaceutical firm. And I just decided, and it was really at a trade show in Barcelona, Spain, of all places, where I realized I don't want to do this anymore. Like, I have climbed the mountain. I got to the top rung, and it's not what I thought it was going to be. I'm also just burnt out on the whole thing. I have nothing against the industry. I actually think that it, creates a lot of life-saving medicines and does a lot of things right. Does some things wrong, like most big businesses, but does a lot of things right. And I'm grateful for everything I learned, the leadership skills, the sales and persuasion and influence skills, and just everything that I was able to learn from that. I'm very, very grateful for. But my time, in my mind, had come to an end. And just coincidentally, I had met a gentleman who had 2 boxing for fitness studios. So think group fitness, working out. I think you're in New Zealand, born out of Australia was F45. So that kind of group fitness workout. But think that with the other side of the studio being boxing, Muay Thai bags and boxing bags. And you do both. You do a functional workout, and then you also do combinations on the bags that the instructor calls out. So I met this gentleman. He was looking to franchise. I was planning my exit from corporate America, and he wanted me to become his first franchisee. And I said, well, I actually am not interested in that, but I am interested in building a national brand with you. And if you're serious about this, I am passionate about health and fitness. I love combat sports. I love MMA, and I would love to build a brand with you. And he already had the concept. Nothing has changed about the workout because it's outstanding, and he built a great product. But the branding and the wrapper around it, had some room for improvement. And he knew that. And so we got together. We worked out a deal, 50-50. Kind of, he brought all his knowledge. I put in the money. We created this company. And I joked with him. I said, now the first person I'm going to hire is going to be a marketing consultant. And they're going to tell us how to build this brand, the color scheme, everything. And it may include changing the name of your business that is really the foundation of this of the product, of the service. And he said, I'm not opposed to changing the name. I'm not married to the name. He goes, but I am married to the woman who thought of the name. So I had to talk to his wife and explain that we may be changing the name. And to fast forward, we did this market analysis and all these things. And I did a lot of due diligence. So it wasn't like I just jumped in with this, but it was really fast. It was like a 4-month process. And then we were in business together. And I wanted to call it, again, I told you my kind of love and my background. I wanted to call it Rockstar Boxing. And everyone was like, that doesn't quite work, Roger. It doesn't quite work. And, we had different names. We tried lots of different stuff. And then my wife one day yelled upstairs. I was up working in my home office that day, and I was upstairs and she was downstairs, and she just yelled up. She goes, how about RockBox Fitness? And it was a lightning moment. I picked up the phone. I called Steve and I said, RockBox, I got it. Good. We're done. We got it. And he loved it. And so the reason RockBox is, yes, we box, we kickbox, but it's all set to like color changing lighting. Like when you go in, it's more in the dark, kind of, working out, lower lighting. And, the lighting changes color with the music, just like it would on stage. The music's, of course, at concert volume, way too loud, but a lot of fun. Then you've got an instructor who's on a mic calling the combinations for the people doing the boxing section to do, and then motivating the people on functional. And so we always kind of joke, it's like going to a nightclub, except you leave with no bar bill and no hangover, so it's a lot better for you and a lot more fun. And yeah, we created that back in 2017. And then fast forward through today, and we got through COVID. We had about 25 studios open during COVID. We got every single studio through COVID, even with the mandatory closures here in the States. And every one of them reopened. And today we have right around 60 studios open, a couple in pre-launch as well. Yeah, so it's been a hell of a ride. It was my first. I had done some entrepreneurial things, but this was my first. Okay, I'm leaving a paycheck, health insurance, stock options, all that kind of stuff. I just left it behind and started, my own business. And Monday was scary. Tuesday was a little scary, and by Wednesday, I never looked back.
Awesome. I love that kind of story. I think it's really great. And
Yeah.
any plans to go international?
Yeah, so we've had talks with, of course, in the States, the quickest way to do that is go to Canada. So we've had several talks with a couple different firms in Canada. And then we've had interest in the UK, and we've had an interest in the Netherlands. And then we had somebody from the UAE reach out. But the thing about when you franchise internationally, you really lose some of the control of the brand. And so you have to make sure you have the right partner to do that, or you get a very watered down version of it or something completely different. And then also, just from a financial perspective, you have to make sure that partner is one that you can be in business with for 20 plus years and know that, you'll have, and we've met some great people. We just haven't been able to get to the finish line. We've been to the altar, I guess I should say. We've been to the altar, but we haven't tied the knot, so to speak, and done the nuptials yet. So always on the radar, just haven't moved that chess piece quite yet.
So, yeah, I've been delivering workshops and doing group coaching and running corporate retreats and speaking at the odd conference for the last 18 years. Specifically, the last 4 or 5 years, as a result of the culmination of all that work, I created the emotional fitness formula, which its pure purpose is to transform people's relationship with uncertainty. And that's been a big part of my work. And another big part of my work over 14 of the last 18 years has been my behavioral profiling. So all the stuff I do around behavioral profiling, utilizing an instrument known as extended disc. So I've accredited several thousand coaches in that instrument as well. Yeah.
Yeah. When you say extended disc, because I know that a lot of people know about disc, but what's the extended piece about it? How's it different?
Yeah, good question. So there's dozens and dozens of disc models out in the marketplace. Most of them are purely and only personality profiling based. The e-disc is personality profiling and behavioral profiling. So the massive difference is that the behavioral profiling side taps into the unconscious, emotional themes. And I believe the most important thing of all is understanding your energetic spread. So how it is that you actually not only utilize your energy, but how to best manage your energy in all aspects of life. Because I think without energy management, you can't do other things like time management, for example. So energy management is everything.
Brilliant. I'm glad you actually mentioned that, because I think there's one thing a lot of leaders need to understand is about energy. I talk about leaders people not wanting to work for a knuckle dragger. And that is because some people don't actually have a lot of energy in it. So that's one aspect. But I think there's other things that you're talking about in relation to energy. In a life that's really a lot happening for a lot of us, how important is the energy? What should people be looking out for as a leader when they're in their day-to-day stuff, they're stuck in the weeds in the midst of things? What are some things that they should be aware of, should be looking out for in relation to their energy?
One of the gifts of having an accurate appreciation of your behavioral profile is where you understand how your energetic spread or your energetic profile. So in other words, some people work extremely well in isolation. They don't want to be with other people. They need to be left alone. And that's how their psychic or energetic batteries remain high. Other people need to be amongst people. So for example, I might be doing an admin task on my laptop for maybe a couple of hours, but I know that with my profile, I need to be amongst it. I need to have energy around me and people around me. So to be in an office that's communal or it's got lots of activity keeps me focused. Whereas there's other people that would be a significant distraction, and they would need to be, as I said, just isolated away. That's one example. There's literally dozens and dozens of energetic patterns that if we were to become aware of it within ourselves and also know how our team members, what their profiles are, for example, would be able to navigate and help them manage their energy more consistently. Because as we know, the moment your energy levels drop, and we're not talking physical, it's more psychological, it's focusing energy, it's adapting energy, it's psychological energy rather than just the pure physical of exhaustion because you've done lots of exercise. I'm talking more psychological and mental. If a leader if it's a blind spot for them, that they're not aware of the energetic spread of their team and how every team member is actually what suits them in terms of an environment, what suits them in terms of not just the environment, but how they're spoken to, how they're treated, how they are led. All of them are different. And I believe that this is a fundamental, crucial cornerstone tool and skill to have as a leader, is to know how your team operates from that space.
Yeah. And I think I love the whole topic. I think it's really cool. We're probably going to be speaking for hours, or we're not going to, but I know it's fascinating in the sense that for a lot of people, they struggle day in. It's just they don't understand where their spread is. You're calling it the energetic spread. If they knew that and they could work better, more effectively, wow, they'll be a totally different person. They'll be a great leader to work with. But yeah, it's really interesting. Now, question here I've got for you is that we've been talking about, it's more about leadership and change today. For you, how did you get into leadership?
It depends on how we define it, because I believe that as a parent, you're a leader. I believe that when I started my coaching and training business back in 2006, I found myself in front of lots of different rooms. So that's how I found myself in a leadership position, or loosely termed an authority position, because you're in the room delivering a workshop and navigating or directing the direction of the conversation or where the room is headed. I found myself in that position by default. I wasn't consciously thinking I'm going to now be leading rooms. I just knew that I wanted to work with people and I wanted to work in a proactive space, because my first professional job straight out of uni was working as a rehab counselor at Ford Motor Company. And this is in the manufacturing part of Ford, where they used to produce the Ford Falcon over in Broadmeadows in Victoria in Melbourne. And it was a pungent, toxic, political, worst of the worst sort of environments I've ever been involved in. And so having barely survived there for 2.5 years, I was really keen. I knew I wanted to be with people. I knew that, and be with people in a meaningful and valuable way, evaluating way. So coaching and training business was my attempt at, and fortunately for me, it worked out. It was my attempt at being in a more proactive, more positive, more resourcefully driven environment. So I guess with that transition over time, professionally, I found myself in leadership positions where I'm running rooms or I'm directing literally the focus of a room for a day or multiple days.
I actually think leadership is about facilitation, really. I think that we are there to facilitate discussions, facilitate thinking, strategy, things like that. And I think that being a facilitator, trainer / coach is something that you bring that sort of skill set out a lot more. It'd be great to see leaders actually learning that more themselves, even just in a meeting, right?
Spot on, Dennis. And just to add to that, because you make a good point, is that I think whether it's a person that's in my position or whether it's a leader of an organization or leader of a team, essentially to me, the core definition of leadership is making people better people, regardless of the industry, regardless of the context. That is, to me, the purest intention of a great leader.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Leadership is Changing with your host, Denis Gianoutsos. Each week, we and our guests provide information and insights through exploring leading change, inspiring executives and leaders to adapt and lead a bigger game in a fast-moving world.